Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about the December 19th, Los Angeles PBS NewsHour Politico debate number 6, Andrew Yang's amazing performance, his victory over every other candidate on the stage, and we're going to rank where those other candidates came in comparison to him. Okay? All right, so let's jump right in. So I wanted to talk about 3 specific questions first. So, one, Andrew Yang predicted this a long time ago. He said that we have a problem as a Democrat Party. We talk about Trump constantly. And when we are talking about Trump, Trump wins. And sure enough, the debate was started with the impeachment question. It said, why should voters support impeachment? PBS NewsHour, Politico's framing of this question was unbelievable. My question was, why were the moderators sitting in the moderator seats? If they wanted to make political statements like this, why didn't they just come up, push Amy Klobuchar away from her podium, push Bernie away from his podium, take the mic and just say, we wanted Trump impeachment to happen, right? There's a point where, the media should report the news or, it's all commentary from them at this point. It's incredible, right? I thought the framing on this was terrible. They were asking they were actually demanding that every single candidate tell America why they needed to support impeachment, rather than giving the opportunity for the candidates to talk about impeachment. And some of them say, you know what, this impeachment is going to be an absolute debacle. Nancy Pelosi called this 3 years ago that we were going to do a failed impeachment and pretty much give 10 or 20 points to Trump. And it was a mess. It was a hot mess, and it was really a gigantic, terrible problem that was parked at the beginning of the entire debate. And I can't believe how hard the media and the DNC are slamming their heads against this impeachment question. It is shocking. There was a good question after that, and there was an interesting question after that. There was a question that said, we have a strong economy, we have booming markets, we have good wages. I've been saying that for a while. It was good to hear some Democrat, people actually acknowledging what's happening in the country. And they were saying, what is the argument to voters that like this economy to vote for Democrats? Very, very genuine question. Yang had an okay answer to it, and multiple candidates were like, economy bad, just like they say Trump bad. And they were like, we can't see. Oh, is the stock market higher than it's ever been? Is almost, are there deers in the forest getting jobs now? It's just like so ridiculous, right? And it was really sad to see these Democrat candidates just kind of pretending that Trump has not been successful at some of the things he intended to do. Because it really is getting bad that the Democrats continue to not accept what Trump is, right? In that he has a ton of problems, but people are going to him for a reason, and that was really bad. There was a really interesting question at the end. It was said, what candidate would you ask for forgiveness from, or what candidate would you give a gift to? Across the board, including Yang, terrible answers across the board for this question. Actually, there was 2 people who said they would ask for forgiveness. My college-age daughter caught this. The only 2 people who said they would ask for forgiveness were women. And there's literally a book about this, which is saying to women, stop apologizing, right? And I didn't catch, it seemed like my daughter was right, and I didn't catch that any men apologized, which was, that's a bad, that it wasn't good, right? And then there were no actual gifts given. And I just thought it was shocking that when you asked 7, people, 6 politicians and 1 leader, what would you ask for forgiveness for? What gift would you give, right? Which is part of the season. I loved how they framed that. It was like, come on, it was bad. That not a single one of them could give a real answer, and that was really sad. And I was disappointed with Yang on that area. And even the women who were saying they were asking for forgiveness, it was like one of those answers where, what's your greatest weakness? And you're like, well, sometimes I'm just too much of a perfectionist. Even the requests for forgiveness were the words forgiveness, but not even real requests for forgiveness. It was really shockingly bad. right? And I was a little disappointed that Yang couldn't deliver a good answer there. I think he had a little bit of bad start because he went first. It's hard to spin up those answers instantly. Yeah. All right. So let's jump in. How did the candidates do? Let's talk about Andrew Yang. He crushed it tonight. He continued his absolute freight train momentum. He had. So let me explain how I'm gonna do these. Right. We're gonna talk about four things for each candidate. Power lines that were awesome, that really hit home and delivered the point, or were funny, or were winsome, or were good, right? Sour lines that did not work, okay? That did not help the candidate, did not move them forward. And then there'll be some notes in here that I'm, just my comments on their comments. And then last, we're going to talk about each of their closing statements, okay? Let's talk about Yang. He had all power lines, no sour lines. Let's talk about them. Excuse me. All right. News. He said Americans are getting their news from different sources, and Americans don't trust the media. It's very true. He said Donald Trump is not the source of all our problems. Another massive truth. He said stop being obsessed over impeachment. Amen, brother. Yes, absolutely. This impeachment is going to be an absolute nightmare for it is going. I swear, I really think it's going to hand Trump 10 to 20 points. It's a nightmare. And Nancy Pelosi saw it a long time ago, and Yang recognized Nancy's wisdom. It's a mess. It is a mess. It is not good. Yang said, make no mistake, Trump will be there at the ballot for us to defeat. I know what he meant by that. He meant he'll literally be there, or he'll figuratively be there, right? But he ain't going away. It's just this impeachment was a massive mistake on the part of Democrats, and they can't even see the problem. Yang talked about things that are on the rise, right? Depression, school debt. He said suicides have overtaken vehicle deaths. Terribly sad. He brought it up a bit. He talked about thorium reactors. Yes. And he says we have to have nuclear energy on the table. He was the only candidate to speak really highly of nuclear energy because the only candidate that understands technology, right? He had a great line. He said, I think Corey will be back. Then he delivered the most powerful line of the entire debate. He said fewer than 5% of Americans donate to politics. You know what you need to donate to politics? You need disposable income. He touched base with Martin Luther King, and he said if freedom dividend was in place, his $1,000 a month, he said he would not be the only person of color on the stage. And that was a slam dunk. He dunked on every opponent on the stage, pointing, and really he was just reminding everybody, hey, remember Obama? Remember when we said that the presidency was something for people other than white people? If you want that, I'm your only option. It's just me, right? So if you want to reinforce the idea that the presidency is for white people, choose any one of these 6 people. If you want to continue the actual legacy of Obama, I'm your only option. That's exactly what he was saying, right? All right. He talked about Hong Kong, did a really good job. He talked about how they're banning face masks in there. They're banning face masks in Hong Kong because of facial recognition software. He talked about China leapfrogging us in AI. He also then talked about really strong on Hong Kong. The only one that really, in my opinion, had a real plan and actually understood what was happening. He said something really important. He said, my son or daughter could be president, right? And what he was saying is, again, this was a huge reminder. He's saying, hey, we're supposed to be actually care about intersectionality, right? And the reality is he's the only intersectionality candidate on that stage, right? Pete had the opportunity to be an intersectionality candidate. He took that off the table himself and said, I would not be the first president to have the attribute that I have, right? Which, again, absolutely shocks me that Pete would, he has this very distinct advantage. He tore that card up and threw it away, right? And I was amazed that Pete did that, right? So Pete was saying, no, I'm just like every other one of the 43rd first presidents, I'd be just like them. And I'm like, wow. I still am amazed to this day that Pete took that card and got rid of it. It's absolutely shocking. Okay, so he talked about special needs, and he said special needs is the new normal. He talked about that we need to stop confusing economic value and human value. He talked about special needs education needs to be a federal responsibility, not a local one. He then shifted right into his, he shifted directly into his closing statement. He said, how am I on this stage with them, right? And he talked about how he has had to overcome all these obstacles that have been put in front of him as a person of color. And it is incredible. He's the only person of color that has been able to overcome all these obstacles that were put in front of him. It's one of the reasons why I'm a strong believer in him. He's amazing. He delivers when it seems impossible, right? And everybody else had good excuses, but the reality, he delivered, right? And that's what leaders do. They own they fix problems they don't even own, right? And Yang's doing it. He talked about, in his closing space, he's talked about senior citizens are working till the day they die. And then he did everything but look to his left, where where basically Warren, Sanders, and Biden are literally working until they die and telling every American, forget retirement. That's no longer an American value, right? And it is absolutely shocking, right? But it was a good call out on his part. And he was also said, politicians are succeeding whether Americans succeed or fail. Andrew Yang crushed it. He did such a great job. All right, now what candidate was in second place tonight, right? Andrew Yang, totally victorious. What candidate took second place tonight? Wine Caves. Their power line was drip, drip, drip off of their wet, dark, craggy walls. And their one sour line was flap, flap, flap. There were some bats that came out of their gaping, stony maws, right? And I'll tell you right now, this is just my comment on Wine Caves and their performance tonight. If anything is remembered from Debate 6, beyond every awesome word coming from Andrew Yang, it will be the cool, dark presence of American Wine Caves. American Wine Caves have fully arrived. American Wine Caves were awesome tonight. They were just so cool and awesome. American Wine Caves had fantastic presence on that stage. All right. The person who came in third, okay, is Klobuchar. She had some really strong, she specifically had some very, very strong power lines. She said, it's not flyover country to me. I live here. I live there. She's a stalwart, man. She's a Heartland stalwart through and through. She talked about Stacey Abrams, right? I'll tell you right now, everybody in this country, every media head, every politician in this country knows the value of Stacey Abrams, and darn near no one on the ground who knows who Stacey Abrams is. It was a catastrophic mistake for her not to run. She should have been in it, right? It's probably one of the biggest losses of potential in this entire event, in this entire in the 2020 election. Stacey Abrams should have been in here. The fact that Tom Steyer stood on that stage and Stacey Abrams is a virtual unknown because she didn't even run is shocking. It was a huge mistake on her part. She should have fixed it. Klobuchar, man, she's had some. This is one of the best power lines of the night. Keep our promises and keep our threats. Oh yeah, I underline that. Absolutely. Keep our promises, keep our threats, right? Obama forgot that one. He did not keep our threats. When America threatens something, we had better deliver. And Klobuchar was saying she will. That's interesting. All right. Power line from Klobuchar. When I was on Trevor Noah. Great line. I love Trevor Noah. I think he's a really good, he's an important guy in America. I think he's doing a lot of important things. Klobuchar said, immigrants don't diminish America. They are America. Great line. She had, Amy Klobuchar had one sour line, right? She said, I have never been in a wine cave. I don't know why anybody would admit that after tonight. Wine caves were clearly the coolest thing on the stage after Andrew Yang, right? Wine caves had a brilliant night. Wine caves are awesome. Like, that's super clear, right? All right. She, by the way, just a note here, Klobuchar absolutely denigrated Pete Buttigieg's experience. She said she didn't, but she totally denigrated him. And then also, unfortunately, Klobuchar absolutely squandered her closing statement. Nothing. Let's talk about Warren. She was fourth, all right? Warren came in fourth. She rolled hard on large corps and the wealthy, right? So consistency there. Here's some of her power lines. Longer hours for moms and dads as their babies are cared for with free childcare. I really like that Warren is owning this hard rejection of work-life balance and a full embrace of work resolve, because that's what Warren, Biden, and Sanders really stand for. They are for the death of American retirement, and for Americans working until they die, and for Americans working longer and longer and longer and longer and longer and longer and longer hours, just like Warren, just like Biden, just like Sanders, right? And boy, as a person who works a lot myself, I gotta say, I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you. I'm not sure if every other American's gonna be totally down with this, but I'm digging it. She also talked about 100,000 selfies. She gets the points. You know why? It was her 100,000 selfies. She didn't talk about it too much. It was powerful. And you know why? Tom Steyer, right? Warren has 100,000 selfies because she stood in the sun, and she stood there in the hot sun and in the rain, and she did the work while Tom Steyer took another dive in his Scrooge McDuck gold coin vault, right? Like, she has been doing the work from day one. Tom Steyer rolled in late with his latte and started in debate 5. It's absurd, right? But Warren started from the beginning. She's been there from the beginning. She's done the work, right? I couldn't believe this. Warren name-checked the Bible. I couldn't believe it. She said, the least of these brethrens. If you don't know, that's Matthew 25:40. I knew it the second I heard it. All right? I was like, whoa, and so I'm a little frustrated, right? Because I've been telling Yang, you better start dog whistling to evangelicals. And guess what? Yang didn't. But you know who did? Warren and Biden. Big time, right? And I'm like, oh, that's a little annoying. All right. Huge power line from Warren. She said she would read the names of trans and women of color whose life state ends during her period in office if she were to be elected. Huge statement. I thought this was really strong. And honestly, it made me think that I think Warren is the strongest supporter of the LGBT community on that stage. She understands them better, and she's willing to risk more for them than anybody on that stage, clearly, right? And again, I would say, of course, Pete's in that mix a little bit, right? But he said, hey, I wouldn't even be the first president to be this, right? He's saying that, for us to elect the first LGBTQ president, it wouldn't be him. That's Pete's word, not mine. That's him, right? So he's saying, I couldn't believe it. It was incredibly bold, and took a lot of courage for Pete to run purely on attributes beyond that. It's a bold move, right? And I think it's becoming clear, yeah, like Warren is very committed to that community, right? And by the way, I wish Yang was as committed as Warren. I don't think he is. Warren is ahead on this issue, right? And maybe, she's reading his book. Maybe he should talk to her and maybe, get a really good idea like this, right? Okay. She had a bunch. So Warren had a bunch of sour lines. I'm not even going to tell you them. She had a really interesting closing statement. She said, she said she has 2 Republican brothers. This is a powerful closing statement because it says, hey, I, Elizabeth Warren, have a possibility of getting 2 Trump voters. That's more than Bernie could get. That's more than Biden could get. That's more than Pete Buttigieg could get. That's more than Sanders could get. That's more than Steyer could get. Right? Like, it was a powerful statement. All right. So next was Sanders. Sanders had a fairly good night, but Warren did outpace him. One of the things that put him very low on this list was he pivoted from a question on race to climate change, redirected, and he was redirected by a woman and refused to be redirected and went right back into his climate change pivot. I couldn't believe it, right? He also called, in his closing statement, Sanders called what he's doing a political revolution. I was like, that's interesting. Some bold words. Let's talk about Pete Buttigieg. Very interesting night for Pete Buttigieg. He played his veteran card against Klobuchar. Shocking. It's the first time I've seen him really play his veteran card. There was a nasty dust-up over billionaire funding, and he was right in the middle of it. And he said, hey, I am big money, but then he pointed right back to Elizabeth Warren and said, you are big money too, and don't you dare, claim that I am and you're not. It was good. It was really good. And Pete absolutely squandered his closing statement. Absolute squander. Stiers was next, and he was suspiciously quiet on billionaire funding, right? And then he used his closing statement to say, "I'm number one on climate change," and also at the same time say, "I'm the new Eric Swalwell, who had horrible numbers and is gone now." Also, and when you looked at all the other candidates who really weren't talking about climate change a lot, I think all the Dems are like, yeah, climate change. Greta Thunberg's got it covered, which I agree. Let her take it. Okay, Biden. He is last for one reason. He was third on this list, right, until he had his stammering gaffe. So he actually there was a point where he imitated what somebody who has a stutter would sound like. And I was like, and until that moment, which was late in the debate, I was like, he's fixed it. Biden can actually get through an entire event without a massive gaffe that offends a large number of people. And he can't, right? So he cannot get through a single event without a massive gaffe. He did have the strongest closing statement next to Yang. And this frustrates me to no end. He name-checked Jesus Christ by identifying Jesus Christ's birthday. He was the only person to say the word Christmas on the stage, I'm pretty sure. And then he ended with "God bless you all," right? Guess what? That's how you get Trump voters, right? And frankly, I wish those words had come out of Andrew Yang's mouth. They didn't. But they didn't need to. Andrew Yang was still number one. Oh, that's my opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion. Let me know below if you have been in a wine cave, when you were in a wine cave, what your opinion on wine caves is, which wine caves I should visit, and how we can really all celebrate wine caves more. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.